Hello, everyone. Oh, hey, look at that. I am blurry. Hold on just a second. Come on. Amateur hour. I skip streaming for one day and I just forget how to do it. Welcome, everybody. I am here to chat with you today about Eventide. Boy, it has been an exciting week. Busy week. Between finishing up the second session for the second group. Boy, that's really confusing. On Monday to working hard through the whole week to get the adventure ready to share with all of you. It has been a busy week here in the world of Eventide, but I am excited to chat with all of you here today about where we are at, where we are going, and what has just released. So, first of all, sorry for missing the stream on Tuesday. Normally, this stream would have happened on Tuesday, and today would have been a Secrets of Eventide stream, but I had some personal business come up on Tuesday, and I just could not stream. So we're here today to chat about what we missed on Tuesday. We'll talk a little bit about what we normally talk about on Saturdays, but otherwise I'm just going to skip it and move forward. I think that's probably the simplest for my sanity. It's been, as I said, a very busy week. So, where are we at? So, the last time we chatted was last Tuesday, and in that stream, we talked about how I was just about to have the second sessions with both of my playtest groups. So, in the first sessions, they've already done their session zeros, and now they are, they're starting the adventure. We did the session zeros for both groups. Then we did the first sessions for both groups. And both groups kind of ended up in the same spot. They made it into the tower. They gathered together as a group. They signed up to enter Wolfren's tower. Then they entered the tower itself and, explored the vestibule and went into the main entry hall. Now, for those of you watching, you can actually follow along with this discussion now because today I released the adventure. That's right. The first part of Wolfren's Fate is now live. You can get it over at the Patreon. It is the top post on the Patreon right now. Tomorrow I will be building a home for these files on MinotaurGames.com so that they will be there for folks to be able to download later, just in case they don't want to go digging for an old Patreon post. And that'll also be a convenient place for me to, showcase all of the bits and pieces that come with it. So that was kind of the first session. The second sessions happened over the past week. So last Thursday, one group went through their second session, and then on Monday, the other group went through their second session. So at this point, they've chewed through a lot of the content in that first adventure. Admittedly, they both went in different directions, so they've both experienced different things, and they both still have other things to experience in the adventure. So I've got some fun little anecdotes I want to share with everybody here today and talk about what happened in those second sessions. And then I want to talk about, looking forward to what we have coming up in the third session for both groups, which will be happening this coming Thursday is the first one, and then the following Monday is the next one. So yeah, that's where we're at. Yes. All right. So the second sessions. Let's talk about those. So when we kind of broke up with the groups, one group was going to the southeast, one group was going to the southwest. The group that went to the southeast was the first group, and they went through that door and made it over into Area 7 of the dungeon, which contains centipedes. Giant, angry centipedes. And, frankly, the fight was a bit of a cakewalk. The party made their fortitude saves when they got hit, which wasn't very often, and the centipedes die very quickly. Most one hit, and that's it for a giant centipede. They only have a handful of hit points, so most of them died pretty quickly. And did not really manage to poison anyone too badly. I think one person took a little poison damage. But frankly, the fight was pretty easy. And looking at the encounter balance for it, that fight was always supposed to be one of the simpler ones. It is a low level encounter, right? So when I built the various combats and the various encounters that exist inside Wolfren's Fate, it's designed for you to be able to do all of them without resting. Now, the key to that is that there are no severes, and there's only really 2 moderate encounters. And then there's a couple lows and a couple trivials. So the entire point here is to allow the players to have a nice long day of adventuring, where they can, kind of ration out their resources, and, with clever use of medicine, they can make it through the day without really needing to rest. So, the centipede fight was never intended to be a very challenging fight. It's a fight that, as long as your dice roll average, you should mop it up without taking too much damage. And that's, frankly, exactly what happened. So, the players then looted that room, right? They found the bones of a halfling buried in the wall, where the centipedes had dragged it from the sewers, because this room is connected to the sewers underneath Wormbone. Not that there's a way for them to get there from here, at least not yet. That may be something that happens in the future, but right now, that's not what's going on. And they looted the room. They found the chest, or the elf bow set, and they took that, and they had a good time. They then moved on from that room, continuing kind of going counterclockwise around the map. They went north into the study. Now, this is Area 6, which contains a haunt. Now, this haunt and the other haunt, frankly, were overtuned. I meant them to be kind of easy challenges, but frankly, I think they ended up more like moderates. So both groups ended up taking quite a beating from their individual haunts because I had them overtuned. And I think the way it worked is I planned them as... I made a very simple mistake in my first design of them, in that I built their damage as if they were a simple haunt or trap, something that fires off once and then is done. But I ran them as complex haunts, which means they happen round after round after round. So the players were taking a lot of damage very quickly. Both groups took quite a beating from these haunts. I have rewritten them for the final version that you see in the PDF that got dropped today. The haunts have been tuned back down to something more reasonable. So, I think that now they're probably perfect. And I'll find out, because each group has not experienced the other haunt. So when they do experience the other haunt, I think I'll have a better idea of how those are supposed to go. I also made sure that the haunt kind of gave more clues as to how it worked and how it was possibly disarmed, as part of kind of the major domo making noise and talking during the start of the haunt, which gives you an indication of how you might be able to disarm. These are definitely not designed to be TPK kind of situations. So the haunt on that side, right, after dealing with the centipedes, was the book-flinging haunt. And this haunt actually ended up being pretty deadly. It only damages one character, but it was really hitting them for a lot more than I intended for the challenge of the thing. And they did end up dealing with it. They ended up burning the pile of books to prevent more from flying at them, which is one way of solving it. The kind of conspiracy theorist alchemist goblin just threw fire on it and was just like, yeah, I'm done with these books. So they took care of that. They, of course, looted this room. And here's the important thing. So in the first room, right, they killed the centipedes, which calms the major domo, right? That's the first step in calming the major domo. And then they went to the next room and saw the pile of books and put them away. They realized that the major domo was like sad that he couldn't put away the pile of books. So they made the check to put away the pile of books. So they've done two things now to calm the major domo. And I think they've figured out that that is something important to do. That is also something the other group figured out as well. So I was, in my initial design, the centipede fight is the one that makes it obvious that you can calm and work with the major domo to get the major domo on your side. But the group that didn't go to that encounter figured it out as well. So that's a good sign. I like that. They're clever, and they managed to put it together. I think the other group would have as well had they gone that way. But in either case, there's the fail-safe of eventually you get to the centipede fight, and the Major Domo thanks you profusely when you get rid of the centipedes. So you start to realize that helping the Major Domo is a thing you want to do. So that was them. They dealt with the book haunt, then they made it to the northern central chamber. And this chamber is kind of a weird one because there's not really a lot to do in it. I added a fight to this chamber with a earth elemental creature after the first round, after the first sessions of playtest. So now there's really something going on in just about every chamber except for the entry vestibule. And this fight isn't meant to be a hard fight. It's another low fight. It's against one level 2 earth elemental creature, which is not a hard fight. Although, that said, the thing does hit pretty hard, and it's a pretty small chamber, which means it's kind of hard to get away from. But, frankly, the players are pretty capable of kind of ganging up on it and taking it down in pretty short order. It's not a very tactical creature, and frankly, it wants to be destroyed because it wants out of the tower, right? That is part of its entire story, is that it wants to leave but can't. It's been bound here, and the magic that holds it here no longer has the ability to send it home. So it doesn't care if death is the answer, is basically what it's working with. So that they went through that encounter, and it was funny because toward the end of the encounter, one of the characters was like worried that they couldn't beat it, and made a move to go to the next chamber, and this is the kitchen. And I already knew from my plotting that inside that chamber was the Thunder Company, so they were already in that chamber dealing with the oven. And when they opened up the door and said, "What do I see?" I just said, "Trust me," and I knew the fight was nearly over with the elemental. I said, "Trust me, your next action is just to close the door with an ashen look on your face." And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Trust me, that's what happens. I'll explain later, but that's what happens." So they were like, "Okay," and so they did that, and then they got to the end of the encounter, and it was also the end of the session. We had reached the end of the session. So between the centipede fights and the book haunt and then the fight with the elemental, that we were basically out of time. There was a lot of role-playing that was happening, and that was really good. It was good to see them kind of playing around and trying to talk with the Major Domo and debating amongst themselves the best way to move forward and how to kind of solve some of the problems that they were facing. So at the end of the encounter, I said, "Yeah, when you opened up the door, you saw the Thunder Company in there fighting a fire-breathing oven, and that is why you slammed the door." And they were like, "Oh yeah, no, that makes sense." So, and that's where we ended. So that was the end of the Thursday group. The Monday group, they're geared up, they're ready to go, and they're playing just a handful of days later. But they went to the west. So, instead of the centipedes, they went straight to the dining hall. The dining hall has the food fight haunt. And again, this haunt was overtuned. It was doing too much damage. It was doing not as much damage as the book haunt, but it was doing it to everyone. But they quickly realized, and I kind of ad-libbed when I realized that it was too dangerous, because I realized after the first session, so after the Thursday group played, that the haunt was too powerful, and I started digging into it and realized that it had some problems. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to let the other one roll just to confirm. And yeah, lo and behold, it was more like a moderate level haunt, and I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be something kind of silly and light. Did a little bit of damage, but then frankly went away. And also wasn't super time consuming. But this was still doing enough damage that, it wore down some of the party resources. And as it was going on, one of the characters was like, "You know what? I just sit down and start eating the food," because they thought the way the Major Domo was like, "No one wants to eat anymore," right? And I was like, that's it. That's one way you can stop the haunt from targeting you, is you sit down and eat. And if everyone sits down and eat, the haunt ends, and you've pleased the Major Domo. So that's actually what that group ended up doing. They tried attacking the cart. One person tried knocking it over, but they failed. They got close. They were off by like 2. And But ultimately they decided, you know what? Let's all eat. So they all ate the kind of, not rotten, but old food. Some of them got a little sick, but they did manage to do that and stop the haunt. Now, the big treasure in this room, there is this big elven tapestry. They did take that. They rolled it up, though. They didn't want to carry it with them because it was too big. So they rolled it up and hid it behind one of the statues in the south corner of the room. And I've decided that means they get to keep. That's fine. I'm not really going to nickel and dime them on that. So they went... from there, they then went up to the oven fight. And frankly, this is the fight that I'm most concerned about in the entire dungeon. It is a moderate fight against one creature, which means it's pretty powerful. It's the most dangerous thing that they can encounter in this particular adventure. And, but they walked in, started combat, and the rogue scored a crit with a rapier. And the fight was over almost before it began, because the fight has a bit in it that once you reduce the oven to half hit points, it gives up. It kind of stops fighting. This is in there as kind of a failsafe, just to make sure it doesn't TPK the group on their first adventure, because I am worried that with its hardness, it could actually do that. It's the sort of fight that, unless you've got high burst damage, you just won't be able to hurt it fast enough to make it go away, and it hits for a decent amount of damage and has a pretty good chance of critting. Not huge, but, you know, it can have a 15-20% chance of critting. That's a lot more than some of the PCs are going to have against it. So, that said, they walked in, you know, rolled a nat 20, critted it with a rapier, which did 20-some points of damage even after hardness. And, you know, looking at its hit points, it was like, oh, okay, it's going to do the flame burst and collapse. And it did that. And they actually thought that was kind of odd, but they didn't really investigate it further and realize that it wasn't dead. It's just playing dead until it heals, which won't happen anytime soon. So it's not a threat they're going to have to deal with now, but at some point in time in the future, that thing's going to come roaring back to life. They'll probably be second level by the time that happens, though, and that fight will not be nearly as hard. So we'll see how that goes in the future, but that's a note for the future, is that the oven is still a threat in that chamber, and the oven is blocking the way to get down to the floor below. I mean, it's not literally blocking, but it's in the same room. So from there, they started, they searched around the room, they found some stuff. They didn't actually find the old bottle of elven wine because they were unwilling to dig through all the crates. They were like, that's too much time. So they didn't find that. They also didn't find the spices on the rack. They didn't bother looking in the spice rack. So they didn't actually get all the loot from that room. That's kind of a first between the two groups, is that they didn't get the majority of the treasure. They only got a chunk of it. So from there, they finished doing that, and mind you, this is when they realized the major domo lamented that that the dishes weren't done and this place was a mess. So they did the dishes. So again, this is another group. This is the other group realizing that helping the major domo may be a secret key to success. And it's going to be real interesting in the next session as the two groups wrap up the last couple encounters, if they work to help the major domo and finish up these two things. The conclusion of next week will be getting access to the floor below. So we're getting there. We're getting there, which means, from my end, I have to really kick into high gear the writing on that stuff. I'm not worried about them getting to it next week. But I am now very cognizant of the fact that stuff is not far off in terms of the time horizon. So I've got to get working on creating some of that material. So from there, that group then went to the central chamber as well, the central northern chamber as well. And for those of you following along, that's chamber 5. I think, let's see, I think I got the map still here. Nope, that's not it. Wolfren's Tower. Yeah, so the chamber in the center there on the top, that is the chamber that they are in now, and this is the chamber that the other group ended in as well. So that is area 5, if I recall correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5. So they made it to room 5. The elevator, the servant appears again. They fight the elemental. They didn't have too hard of a time with it. it's a little bit of a tough fight because it's got a little better AC than they're used to. So there's some challenge there, but it wasn't impossible by any means. When they were finally done defeating it, the thing that they wanted to do was pull the lever, right? So the servant appears next to this lever, and this voice says, you know, where do you want to go? Down to my laboratory or up to my home? You know, my servant will take you there, because this is really his reception area. This entire level of the dungeon is designed to be Wolfren's kind of guest area, where guests can come and hang out, and he can do lectures or have parties and stuff. He mostly uses it to entertain small groups of scholars and stuff. His actual home, like where his bed chamber is and all that kind of stuff, was up in the tower, and that's all ruined. That got trashed. So most of that doesn't exist. But they got to the end of their time and pulled the lever. And when they did, the floor rumbled and shook, and that's where I ended it. Because it doesn't really go anywhere. It's going to be a little anticlimactic on the other side of this. But they pushed it all the way to the bottom to go to the bottom of the dungeon. But it doesn't actually work anymore. So they're not going to go anywhere. So both groups, again, ended in the same spot. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, how did that happen? And some of it's my personal pacing, right? You know, I'm as a GM, I'm very kind of deliberative, and I let the players explore a space. And when it feels to me like they're petering out on things to do, I'm like, okay, well, where do you want to go next, right? But I give them the time to do that. I don't immediately push them from one thing to another. So I kind of give them the time to explore spaces and interact with each other and things like that. So, you know, going through 3 rooms total took 3 hours. And each one of them had either a fight or a haunt encounter. So that's not really that big of a surprise. Between that and looting and role-playing, right, you know, we're cruising along. We're not going at light speed, but we're not exactly crawling either. So both groups end up in the same spot. Now, what do they have to look forward to this coming week? You know, and I'm going to talk about this more on Tuesday and about what's coming up in the future. But suffice to say, they now get to explore the other parts that the other group already did. And there are also rooms that have already been explored by the Thunder Company. In both situations, the Thunder Company went the opposite way, which meant when they went, you know, west, the Thunder Company went east. When the one group went east, the Thunder Company went west. So those encounters are different now. So that's kind of what they have to look forward to. The oven, for example, has some damage on it already when the PCs arrive for the first group. In the second group, one of the centipedes is killed. So those fights are going to be easier now, even easier. So I don't expect either group will have too hard of a time making it through the rest of the dungeon without needing to rest. They're low on resources at this point, and there's a lot of damage floating in the group. You know, there are characters who are at like half because they can't medicine fast. Generally speaking, I've been like, yeah, you spend about an hour in each room, so you can medicine once per room. But if you medicine at the end of the previous room, you have to wait till the end of the next room, right? You know, it's that sort of thing. But generally speaking, I'm assuming that everyone's taking kind of a slow, deliberative approach. It's taking them several hours to clean this out. By the time they leave the tower, it'll be late afternoon, early evening. So it should all work out very nicely. They entered at noon. You know, skipping the first vestibule, which probably only took 10 minutes. If I assume every chamber beyond that, except for the last one, takes an hour, they'll be in the tower for 6 hours. Which, you know, it'll be fine adventuring day. No one will feel like they got shorted. So that's kind of where they're at. They're both a little low on resources, but what they have left is actually softer than the stuff they've faced up to this point. That said, there's also less treasure and loot stuff because the Thunder Company has claimed some of it. So, you know, that's what we've got going on. So, that's kind of a good recap of the second sessions. It's been a lot of fun, to be honest. I've had a really good time, you know, just getting a chance to sit down and play Pathfinder for fun, right? I've had a lot of folks ask about streaming. You know, are you streaming these games? Can we watch them? And frankly, it's been very rejuvenating to me just to not be on camera for a game, right? I'll be honest, since the pandemic started, I have gamed very little off camera. I've done a bit of it, but not as much, because the stream stuff has been kind of my big things over the past 2 years. And this has just been a good way for me to hang out with some friends, play some games, and have some laughs, right? And not have the pressure of, wait, is the stream going right? What's our, oh, the bit rate's wrong. Okay, well, let's fix that, and little things like that. Oh my god, we're dropping frames, everyone stop streaming. Oh, somebody wants to go get a beverage. Well, you can't do that until the break, right? And I know that other streams are much more lax on that sort of stuff, but I like to, kind of put on as much show as I can. So in this case, not streaming has actually allowed us to kind of just relax and have fun and play around with the game. And if somebody flubs a roll, we just retcon it. It's fine. If somebody needs to look something up, we pause and look it up. It's much more like an ordinary game group experience. But this has also allowed me to be much more critical and deliberative about the adventure itself. I've gotten really good playtest feedback out of this, and I think it shows in the document that I dropped here today. So speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about that. So let's see. There it is. So today here we dropped Wolfren's Fate. The first part is available right now. That's right. It's exciting. You could go download it right now. If you're watching this, you obviously have access and can go download it right now. So Wolfren's Fate, the first part, I call it Session 1 because my initial thought on this was I will release each session note. And eventually it will probably get to that, where I'm writing literally content for 1 week. But right now, like doing a dungeon where they can go any which way meant that I really had to kind of design all of it at once. So I actually designed 3 sessions at once, but I wasn't going to call it 1 through 3. So Wolfren's Fate is available right now. Session 1, which is actually several sessions worth of content. You can grab that from the Patreon. It includes a map at pretty good resolution using my blue tiles that you can use if you want to run the adventure. I even included a little blue tiles cover piece to put in the upper northwest corner over the other map so that it hides the secret room until you're ready to reveal it later. So that's what I've got going on in my home game. So I solidified that and made it a piece that was easy to use. You literally just put it up in the upper northwest corner, and assuming the map is scaled the right way, it should work out just fine. All of that is available now. The entire adventure is there, and just giving you a walkthrough here, and I'm going to want some feedback on this, because frankly, this is the first time I've dropped adventure content through Minotaur Games. I've done some rule supplements and stuff. I've done some various kind of bits and pieces, over the years, some rules, some monsters, some stuff like that. It's the first time I've dropped adventure content, and as such, I'm trying some new things. I'm doing some new stuff. So if you have the adventure, right, go ahead and pop that open. I'm going to kind of walk through it here real quick. I may actually I may be able to go to mode. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go and grab that monitor. And we can kind of scroll through it together. Oh god. Nope, not that monitor. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. It's everywhere. Okay. So I am going to get this all set up here. Give me just half a sec. I should have done. Here we are. The world we live in. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and scale. Oh, nope. Wrong thing. We'll go ahead and scale me down so that I'm just down here. All right, here we are. This is Wolfren's Fate. This is the entire PDF right here. So here you've got just kind of the intro page. And one of the things I included here was a summary of the entire adventure. This is way beyond just the part 1 of Wolfren's Fate, Wolfren's Tower. This is actually a summary of kind of the entire adventure itself as I see it. Now, so you got part 1, the Wizard's Home. That's actually half of that is this document itself. So, but I also talk about the part 2, Wolfren's Ring, part 3, the Red Thistle Errand, and part 4, the Wizard's Vault. Now, you will notice here, I've got some black and white art throughout. As it turns out, I have a pretty good library of art to play around with, and some of it is pretty fun. So I've put in a little wizard here. He's a delightful little character. I don't know if that's actually Wolfren, but we'll say that it is for now. This is our wizard Wolfren. So this also includes an introduction to just kind of Wormbone in the world of Eventide. If your group doesn't know anything about it and you kind of want to jump right in without going through all of the material of the player's guide, of which there is a lot. So that's what you got. Then we hop right into the adventure itself. This has a fair amount of box text in it. You know, lots of stuff here to get you started, kind of the big setup. There's a bit in here about Wolfren himself that if you want to give the players kind of some direct knowledge. And then we kind of get into the exploration part of the adventure itself. Again, more box text. I'm a fan of providing box text. You can summarize it or rephrase it however you want. No worries there. So there's that. But then, honestly, you know, here's the map of the entire dungeon. It's keyed. It's ready to go. And this, you know, should be, you know, pretty easy to use at the table. Included in the document over on Patreon, I have a untagged version of this map that is at a pretty good resolution. Honestly, the blue tiles are a better resolution than that. But frankly, I didn't want the file to be so large that it was unusable. I think it's a pretty good resolution. It should be good enough that you can play on it and your players probably won't notice. So if you don't have the blue tile stuff and you don't want to spend all the time setting it up, because trust me, that map is so detailed that it would take you several hours to build it. I know it took me several hours to build it, and I'm really good at blue tiles, at using blue tiles. So this is the starter map, and then it kind of jumps straight into the encounters themselves. So you know, most of these are pretty straightforward. If it's a new monster, I include the stat block. If it's not, I just include the name and kind of the level, and I assume that you can find it. I didn't put in callouts to what book they're from. I could do that, but I haven't as of yet. Most of them are pretty straightforward, and frankly, with a 10-second Google search, you can find them. So I guess I'm not too worried about that. But each one of these is broken up into kind of an introduction, some box text, discussion of creatures, adjustments if the party is, you know, bigger than 4, you know, and then it also talks about the Major Domo. He has a section, the treasure has a treasure section, which talks about what you can find. And then this last section is really important. There is an exploration section in here, and this section is critical because it talks about what happens if another group gets there first. So pretty straightforward stuff. There's some guidelines in here about other things that Wolfren cares about. But, you know, otherwise it's a pretty straightforward adventure layout. There isn't anything too weird or special about it. This is the potency ring that you can find. You know, pretty straightforward little stuff here. Nothing too weird, nothing too unusual. Honestly, a relatively straightforward adventure layout. I am interested in what people think about this, if there's things I'm missing, if there's things that folks think they could really use. I'm open to feedback and thoughts. This is kind of my working script, and it worked well for me. But you know, your party may differ. So there's that. And yeah, this was a fun illustration. Actually, this illustration is what made me remember that I have a bunch of stock art that I could use that made sense. So you know, in the study there is a weird pile of books that you can put away. Ta-da! Here's a weird pile of books you can put away. So I was pretty happy with that. I am happy that this does have some art in it. It's not the most amazing art, but it is a pretty decent black and white line art that I think is pretty nice. So I'm pretty happy with it, and I'm happy to include it here. So this is the second haunt that you can play around with, and then we get to the and then I found that in the stock art there was a centipede. I was really thrilled. I have to admit, I actually giggled when I realized that I had a centipede, a piece of art. So I put that in the middle here, and we are good to go. So, this is kind of it. I talk a bit about Elfbow here. All of the bits are here. There's some guidance in here if the players want to leave early, and what that means and how you can get them back into the adventure. There's bits about reporting to the town when they do leave. And then there's a spot about continuing the adventure. Obviously, if you're jumping straight into the next level, that document will be available sometime in the next month. So I'm hoping at the very least that everybody will get a document like this once a month. That is just kind of part of the Patreon. As part of it, right, those of the Scholar tier get PDFs for half off, and those of the Lord and Master tier get all the PDFs for free. Adventures are different than that. These are going out free to everybody. Eventually they'll be collected and made into a full product. That product will be put up on drive-thru and things like that. That'll be the thing that the scholars will get for half off, and everyone else will get for free. But that is further down the road. I wanna have entire chunks of the adventure before I go that route. So once I have the second part of this, I may actually put that together as kind of part one of Wolfren's fate, is just the tower and the top couple levels and that exploration. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's kind of it. Now, after this, I include kind of two appendices. One is just a description of the two groups, the Thunder Company and Grablin's Lot. So you can learn about, Halrus Grimbone and Velmirinia, Pavrig Sprang and Hiss, yeah. These characters, I think, are going to continue showing up throughout this story and maybe even beyond. But we'll see how it plays. I'm kind of letting the group see which ones they kind of hook onto, and they haven't had a chance to really play with them all that much at this point. So, we'll see how it goes. All right. And then, last but not least, I'm a big fan of including kind of a summary of all the treasure you can find and all the experience you can get. This is just an easy cheat sheet for GMs to be able to pull this up. You don't have to dig back through the whole adventure. You don't have to keep track as you're playing. You can just play the adventure, and then you can come back here and just check off or mark whatever you want that they've found or discovered. So that should make life pretty easy. I'm interested in what you think, though, and I'm also interested if I missed anything. I don't think I did. I kind of went through the adventure with a fine-tooth comb, but if I missed anything, please let no. And then, of course, there's the page of legalese on page 16. So, discounting the page of legalese, we're talking about a 16-page adventure. That's pretty good. That's pretty exciting. I'm pretty happy about that. So, yeah, let me go ahead and scale myself back up here. All right. So, that's kind of what we got. I'm very excited about, getting that adventure out to all of you. I think it's a lot of fun. My tables have had a blast playing it. I hope that yours will too. In the coming days, a couple things are going to happen. One, I'm going to get that adventure up on MinotaurGames.com, so it's going to have its own page in the GM section. I do want to start building some stuff in the GM section. I haven't had the time to. This week has been a bit of a mess. You'll have to excuse me. But the adventure was my focus. So the other GM's material is important to me. I want to get some of that up, but I have to keep the adventure rolling because I have players to feed. But that said, I've got some time now because I think this coming week they're going to finish exploring this first piece here, and then they'll move on to the second piece the weeks after that, which is a full 3 weeks from now on my timeline, which gives me plenty of time to do that and stuff. So the first adventure is going to go up on MinotaurGames.com, and so that'll start building out that portion. I'll get the maps and stuff up there too. And if I notice any changes or corrections, those will happen in a timely fashion. I'll probably collect them over time and then make those changes. So if you're going through it, if you're reading through it, you notice a typo or something, you want to let me know. By no means you're not required to, but if you do, I'll start a list of those things and get those taken care of. I'm pretty decent at writing, but I do have a love of commas, which is why I, always pay for a good editor. I have not done that yet, but it is coming soon. I am excited as well that some art is coming in and flowing in. That stuff is really quite exciting, and I can't wait to show more of it to all of you. Some of the pieces are really shaping up to be really something special. The Gloamling looks great. I'm really excited to see a more roughed-in version of the Penumbrist. I haven't seen it yet, but it's coming along. So I'm excited for that. And I think that about covers it. We're at this is the last day of April, which means in a few days I'm going to update my my month's thank you screen for the end of all these videos. So make sure you're current over on Patreon for that. And that's about all I got here today, folks. So if anyone has any questions, I'm here to answer those and chat with all of you. I'm excited for folks to get a chance to play the adventure. I am going to be putting up some guidelines on MinotaurGames.com about if other folks want to stream their adventures. I'm not streaming my games, but that doesn't mean other people can't. My only real big request there is that I get a link to the Patreon in the stream, and that it's not behind a paywall. I don't want my content behind a paywall without an agreement with me, right? Because then that's how these things work. So if it's free and available to everybody, then folks are going to be able to stream it. If it's behind a paywall, then yeah, we gotta talk. We need to have a chat. But yeah, that's about it. So that's where we're at. I'm excited to see where this goes. I think over the next months, right? I'm going to assemble this adventure in its entirety, and eventually release it. Right now it's 15 pages long. I have a sneaking suspicion the first part, which will include the second level of this dungeon, is not. I don't believe the second level is going to be another 16 pages. It'll probably be more like 10 to 12. We won't be as large, which means that the first part will be 20-some pages. I don't know that they're all going to be that long, but we will certainly see. The second part is something I'm really excited about because it involves kind of wandering around and exploring the town of Wormbone, and for that I'm going to need to finish up my map of the city, which is still I've got a lot of work to do on that, so I've got my work cut out for me here in the coming week. But I am excited to get this thing done and get it up to folks, beyond just this Patreon. The Patreon has really empowered me to make it happen, but ultimately I want to share this with lots of folks, and the Patreon is a great way to motivate me and to keep me honest and to keep me moving. But fundamentally, right, I'd love to be able to put this PDF up on drive-thru and places like that, so that folks beyond can share in this world and enjoy it and play around in this setting. So we will see how that goes. Well, folks, if anybody has any questions here, I'll be happy to answer them or chat with folks. I've got about another couple minutes here before I towel off. I have another my usual Saturday Twitch stream is looming. It's Community Days. We're gonna do that. But I think that's about where we're at. I'm excited to see how both my groups develop. They're starting to gel. In the coming weeks, I'm going to be going through all their backstories. We'll probably do some Tuesday sessions talking about the groups and some of their backstories and things like that, and how some of those might provide opportunities for adventure. I think that one of the things that we might do there is I might leave some flexibility in the story in terms of its XP and leveling to allow home GMs to include little micro side adventures, right? Because one of the things that I think is important in any published adventure is just having a little bit of room for, like, hey, we assume that, players' backstories and their own motivations are going to lead to a handful of encounters, and here's how you incorporate those into the overall story, and here's what is kind of budgeted. So do this and have some fun with it. What program do I use with my blue tiles from drive-thru? Okay, so the blue tiles are a thing that I did 2 years ago now. I've been meaning to put out another set. I just haven't had the time to finish it. Although, honestly, there's a very decent chance that my work on Eventide will force me to finish the Wilderness set that I have about half done, because I'm going to need those tiles. So all of the tiles are actually drawn in Photoshop, I have a drawing tablet, and I draw them by hand. But I have some specifications that I follow to make sure that they're all uniform and that they meet up and line up, and they're basically like little Lego bricks, right? That you can kind of build whatever map you want, but aren't proprietary Lego bricks. That's my thought though, is that it's a constructible map. And, so I draw those in Photoshop, and then in Roll20, they're actually just native kind of software that you can purchase, and then in there you can just drag them from the menu and create maps inside of their system without it eating up any of your drive space, right? Because every account has a certain amount of drive space on their site. I also have them then up on drive-thru for folks to just grab, download, and put in whatever site they want. Those have done really well for me. Folks really like blue tiles, so if you haven't checked those out, I suggest that you do. But yeah, I've got a Wilderness that I've been working on, that I think would really help. I do keep creating kind of random one-off pieces for various maps. Like I've got an anvil that I'm drawing that I'm not quite happy with, that I gotta do a little work on, and some other odds and ends. I may end up actually putting those up for folks who support this Patreon just as freebies. For folks who are interested and want to grab some more. There are actually, on my Discord, I believe there's a Blue Tiles channel, and there's some freebies floating around in there if you haven't grabbed them. A few of them are even animated. Like, I realized that I could do simple GIF animations. So, like, there's a cauldron and a spinning die and stuff. And I figured out how to do that using Photoshop, because you can make animated GIFs in Photoshop. That's how I've been making all my GIFs. Like, I don't know if you've seen, like, the warp GIF and things like that. The baby skeleton video I did. All that stuff is stuff I've created using Photoshop. So, so that's where all the maps are created right now. There may come a point in time in the future where I do maps different ways, but right now that's the best way for me to do them. Then, of course, I've got the bigger maps, right? I've got maps of, the world and stuff. Those are also drawn via Photoshop. They're just drawn in a different style. They're more standard cartography maps, so, yeah. All right. Yeah, and of course there is a Rango tile. You can get my cat and put it in your dungeon. Maybe not in your dungeon. That sounds dangerous. He doesn't like that. All right, folks. That's what I got here for everybody today. I'm going to be back online here in about 10 minutes for the for the weekly Twitch stream. We're going to be playing some 7 Days to Die. I hope you tune into that. But thank you for watching, everybody. Sorry we missed Tuesday. Our next patron stream will be this coming Tuesday, where we're going to look forward at the next part of the adventure and what it might contain, and talk about how the groups are going to wrap up their playthrough of the first part. So if you haven't done it, go grab that adventure and give it a read. I am eager to hear what you think. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.